the Texas A&Ms and Ohio States of the world are not going to be beholden to what the athletic directors in Nevada and San Jose State think. They're not.
Greetings and salutations, and welcome to the Odd Coaches Podcast. I am your host, Dr. Keith Adams, and with me today on this Throwdown Thursday special edition, focusing on administration in college athletics, our favorite administrator, Robert Abney. Robert, how are you, sir?
As always, sir, living the dream.
And academic and athletic consultant for the CKA Save Project and athletic director extraordinaire, George Hocker. George, I get to take you back in the deep water. How you doing?
Yeah, I knew there was a reason I got out of it, but yeah, go ahead.
All right, so fans, in segment one, we're going to recap the 2024 National Association of College Directors of Athletics convention, as well as get our reactions to the Knight Commission's presentation. In segment two, we're going to discuss possible ways athletic departments can deal with all of these new challenges facing college sports. And in segment three, it's going to happen sooner rather than later, the expansion of the NCAA tournament, as well as some strange hirings and firings in some people's eyes. But first, what happens in Vegas doesn't always stay in Vegas. The 2024 National Association of Collegiate Directors of Athletics, the nation's top administrators, met in Vegas last week, and the Knight Commission on Intercollegiate Athletics, which is an independent group with a legacy of leading reform, did a presentation, and we want to talk and react about that. So, based off the House situation, the Knight Commission surveyed 50 football bowl championship series athletic directors, and they asked them a number of questions. I'm going to give the questions. I'm going to give the percentage that agreed or strongly agreed, and I want the reaction of our panel. So the first question, does FBS need a commissioner or similar leadership position to lead FBS conferences? 75% of the athletic directors surveyed agreed or strongly agreed with that. George, do you agree or disagree with FBS needing a commissioner or a similar position?
Yes, I do agree with them. I think they need a governor body of some sort, whether it's a commissioner or a group of guys. With NIL the way it is, they need to put some regulations in place. It's changed from state to state. I mean, it's the Wild West right now. So they really need that. And they need that to set parameters to make it a level playing field, which I think will wind up happening. The drawback to that is if the FBS gets a commissioner, there's no NCAA. What do you need them for? So that's where, and I think that's and I've been saying that's the road we're headed down, and I think that's what's going to wind up happening.
Right, Robert. Does FBS need a commissioner or a similar leadership position to lead the FBS conferences?
Well, you had that in the NCAA, and now you don't. So, okay. I mean, yes, they need leadership, but who's that going to be? Who's going to be the guy? Who are you going to get, right? Because let's be honest, who is Greg Sankey of the SEC? Who's he going to listen to? Unless he's the guy, which he's not going to be because he's staying right where he is, who are you going to listen to? And I don't know. I don't know. And if you're saying you need a commissioner or leadership, then what follows is you're implying that there should be some rules, right? That maybe everybody has to follow. I don't know. And if you've got a commissioner, you've got rules. What's your enforcement mechanism? How are you going to enforce whatever rules that's a great idea. I don't see how they get there. That's all.
All right. So, in terms of needing a commissioner, 75% either agreed or strongly agreed. The next question: does FBS need a specific leadership panel to lead and align the FBS conferences? 65% agreed or strongly agreed. George, what do you think about that in terms of a leadership panel to lead and align?
We're at the same thing again. Once you say you need a commission, you need a panel or Congress, however you want to put it, to put rules in place. And like here we are again. These are all seeds of creating the super conference, and they can all see them. NIL is out of control, so people are now. We're at a point where we want to get rid of that. We want to get rid of the tyranny of the NCAA, but basically we want to make sure we want to keep the money straight and make it a level playing field. So this is where we're back to again. And Robert's right. Who are they going to listen to? It's going to have to be somebody that they vote on and say, okay, this is almost like The Godfather, where we're going to have a takeover and somebody's going to be like, okay, we'll agree to this, because it's going to come down to this being the commission. You might as well call it the commission. And they're going to have to do it to protect everybody's interest, because if they don't and it continues to run out of control, rampant like it is, because let's be honest, they have SEC definitely has no respect for the NCAA whatsoever. They could care less, and they're not going to give them another penny of this money. So they have to get something in place that they respect, and if they have some respect for them, they're going to listen to them. They'll agree to certain rules, and they'll agree to play by them. And it'll be good for another 15 years or something, until the money gets astronomical again, and there'll be another shakeup. But that's where we're headed, man. We're headed to that super conference, and it'll start with football and move its way on to other sports. So,
Well, and when we're
go ahead,
talking
Robert.
when we're talking about FBS conferences, what are we talking about? Are we talking about like SEC,
Power
Big
5,
12,
yeah,
Power Four.
Big
Power
10,
4,
ACC, right?
yeah, Power
Yes.
4, yes.
Okay, so you're talking about those schools, okay? Now, technically, you have all of these other schools that are FBS, right? So, but if you're going to have people voting, okay, when you look at voting, Texas A&M and New Mexico State, both FBS, their interests are going to be significantly different. And I doubt very seriously that the Texas A&Ms of the world, because there are more FBS schools that are not Power 4.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
The Texas A&Ms and Ohio States of the world are not going to be beholden to what the athletic directors in Nevada and San Jose State think. They're not. Northern Illinois, love me some Tuesday night action, but these guys do not care what they think. And you talking about the whole super conference idea, I mean, I can't see that not being a thing.
When looking at it, some people gonna get left out the party. It's gonna happen. We're already looking at a tier system getting ready to start happening anyway, the way the money's rolling anyway. Because you got the big boys can play on a whole different stage than the other guys can. I equate this to here in our area in the DMV. We probably have one of the strongest athletic conferences in the country with the WCAC, and the WCAC ended up going to tier levels. There's a A tier, and then there's a B tier to it, because the A tier teams were always competing at the highest level and winning. You'd get the champion out of there, and it wasn't fair to the smaller schools. And we're almost looking at that right now, and it's almost going to be like they're not almost looking at it. It was already like that every once in a while, but now it's getting like that again. And I think that the money is going to push this to even happen even faster. I mean, we see the writing on the wall and keep talking about it. And there's no real way to protect the little man, out of this whole situation, especially with the latest ruling where they got to come up with the $20 million. Where you see Northeastern Michigan being able to come up with $20 million for all their athletic programs. I mean, come on, man.
So with that, George, the last question we'll go over: should the FBS schools be governed by a new association under the CFP umbrella? Only 55% of surveyed athletic directors agreed or strongly agreed with that. So he went from 75 to 65 to 55.
Yeah.
George, do you agree or disagree? Should FBS schools be governed by this new association under the CFP umbrella, or that super conference you may be talking about?
Yeah, and you see the pare down, the numbers shrink because you have the little guys voting in this now. Now it's like, oh, wait a minute, this becomes unfair. But yeah, it's going to become unfair because I can tell you right now, the SEC, Big Ten, those number of ACC schools and those Big 12 schools, if they can get the money, they're going to keep rolling with it and get their hands on it. They're going to do whatever, and they're not going to stop. So it's going to be a forced situation where we're going to be forced into it because money wins. I mean, they're going to get the money. I mean, poor Eastern Michigan, Marshall is not going to be able to put that kind of money up. But they're not going to stop being the FBS. So it's going to force them into it because it's going to be two sets of rules playing right here. So it's going to be a forced thing.
Robert, you have the last word in this segment. What do you think?
I don't know, man. I think that at some point that new organization is coming, and I don't know what it's going to look like. Maybe it's two, maybe it's your power four, and maybe everybody else. I don't know, but it's a brave new world, and we're figuring out as we go along, I guess.
And speaking of that brave new world, in segment 2, we're going to talk about a potential model that some of the best athletic programs are using. Will other programs mirror this? We'll be right back on the iCoaches podcast.
The CKA SAVE Project is an industry leader in advocating for student-athlete academic and athletic needs. Through academic and athletic enrichment, the CKA SAVE Project is on the forefront of the issues facing 21st century student-athletes. As student-athletes continue to struggle to find a better balance between academic and athletic success, the CKA SAVE Project offers academic and athletic services to support student-athlete academic success, including academic skills assessment, academic and athletic consulting, academic monitoring, academic and athletic workshops. For more information or to schedule a free consultation, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast. In segment 2, we're talking about the future of college sports. The future will be about gaining traction, power, and money. The system is in a huge transition, and here's a peek at one of the best athletic programs in the country, the Ohio State University. So their athletic director, Gene Smith, is set to retire from his post, and he has been a huge figure in college athletics. Ohio State is the largest athletic department in the country, and it sponsors 36 sports. And George and we were a part of programs, 1920? Something like that. They've got 36 sports, and at Ohio State, this includes, quote, stratisfaction of sports in the future. This term is also known as tiering, and we talked a little bit about that in segment 1. So let's talk about the tiers at Ohio State. The bottom end, some of Ohio State sports will be non-scholarship, which means no financial aid. Those de-emphasized sports will play more regionally, likely traveling by bus instead of flying. In the middle tier, You will have a mix of scholarship and non-scholarship sports. Currently, the NCAA allows full roster scholarships in only 5 sports: football, men's and women's basketball, women's volleyball, and women's tennis. The rest of the sports are called equivalency sports, and that can be shared across the spectrum in terms of scholarship. With the House settlement, schools will have the option of fully funding sports like baseball, that has previously had like 11.7 scholarships over a roster of 35. And then we move to the top tier, which will be fully funded, which will be football, basketball, and whatever the third most popular sport is in a conference. So Ohio State, in my opinion, won't be alone in that. But with that information, Robert, what do you think about the Ohio State plan? Will that have traction nationwide, or will that be maybe a Power Four type of outlook? What do you think?
No, I actually see, I mean, you have to figure something out. And this model makes a lot of sense. It almost sounds like, the idea of maybe having conferences that are regional, like, oh, I don't know, the old Big Ten or the old Southwest Conference. Maybe and to that end, I saw something probably last week, maybe the week before. The athletic directors of the smaller D1 schools in Texas are having, and you're talking about like Texas A&M Corpus Christi, Texas A&M Commerce, West Texas A&M, Stephen F. Austin, Sam Houston State. You're talking about Texas State. You're talking about these schools actually having a Texas athletic conference where all of their competition is in the state, right? And I can see a lot of schools doing that. I can see a lot of schools saying, okay, these sports we're playing regionally and you're going to go by bus. Now in Ohio, you can do that. If you're in Albuquerque, that's slightly more problematic, but you can lessen travel costs. You can lessen travel costs by, not being in a conference where you have to send your kids to Pullman, Washington, to play volleyball. I mean, so I see this model making a lot of sense, but I mean, this isn't a new idea. If you go back to the conferences that were in place in the 70s, that's what it was before all the money started blowing everything up.
George, what do you think about the Ohio State model?
I think it's going to be a good model. The question's going to be, here are the two questions it's going to be. First of all, the first question is going to be about, you're going to get into that old debate about who, or is this sport more important than this sport? They'll have that debate. But the major debate is going to be what sports are generating money. So let's take an interest here. If I play baseball at LSU, we're making a boatload of money off of baseball in LSU. Okay. If I'm playing baseball at the University of Maryland, we're not making the same amount of money. So those programs are going to be different. So and if it's left up to each school, how those programs are funded are now going to be a different situation. So now you're gone now in this situation where you're creating tiers of what conferences are going to be and where guys can play. Because if I'm in Maryland, I sure as hell don't want to play LSU where they got 80 to 90% of the team on scholarship, and we only got 50%, and we at Maryland, and we can't get the same kind of athlete. It's not a fair shake right there. So that's going to be the interesting thing, because in some places, certain sports are going to make more money than they are in other places. And, pretty much every school down south I'm just going to use baseball because I can, but we could use softball. If we're talking down south and the Southwest, they're all going to make money. That's why you see them on TV. But up north, not so much. So we'll see how this all, how it all shakes out. How they're going to fix that little loophole in it. So that'll be the interesting part with me is what they do with the different sports.
All right. So when we get back, we're going to talk about some of the other items discussed, as well as some of the changes that may be forthcoming that may be unintended consequences based on our previous segments. We'll be right back on the iCoaches podcast.
The reviews are in for Dr. Keith Adams' book, Finding the Balance, My Personal Journey to Academic and Athletic Success. College professor and student-athlete academic expert Dr. Lisa Rubin said, "There is nothing out there like this book, so I do hope people will pay attention and give it a read." Former George Mason standout Fowler Campbell said, "Consider this book an opportunity to work directly with Dr. Adams, just like I did. I assure you that there will be something you can take away that will be useful to you throughout your personal journey." Ryan Waite, a recent college graduate who is a software engineer, said, "I like how the book is based on research, which makes it good for general students as well as student athletes." The book serves as both a memoir to Dr. Adams' 30-year academic and athletic career, as well as an instructional guide to assist student athletes, parents, coaches, teachers, and administrators navigate through the challenges of finding a better balance between academic and athletic success. The book includes over 15 personal stories and anecdotes from Dr. Adams, along with numerous former players and colleagues from a variety of sports and endeavors. You can order your copy at www.ckasaveproject.org. From the main page, simply click CKA Save Project Services and order the Find the Balance book. For more information, contact Dr. Keith Adams by email at cka@ckasaveproject.org.
Welcome back to the Odd Coaches podcast. In segment 3, we're going to talk about some of the other items that was discussed, as well as some of the changes that may take place as a result of it. One of the issues is the end of the sports sponsoring minimum. And what that means is the NCAA mandates that schools sponsor a minimum number of sports, and that number may drop. Robert, what are your thoughts on sports sponsorship minimums in terms of being a Division I school, and will that change as a result of the House case and all of these things going on?
I think it has to. I mean, you're talking about, and again, this goes to the smaller schools. How are they going to be able to effectively fund 16 sports and adhere to Title IX restrictions and everything else? Because Title IX isn't going away. And what that's going to mean is that there are going to be schools that are going to have to make some hard decisions. And I think that sport minimum is going to go away. And it makes way more sense for you to say, okay, as long as y'all are meeting Title IX, you can have as many or as few sports as you like. As long as you are fulfilling all the requirements of Title IX, do what you need to do. And I think that's what's going to happen, because let's be honest, some of these schools, they are not going to, what you will likely see is you may see schools going to sports at a club level. Schools will have tennis clubs. Schools will have wrestling clubs. Schools will have track and field and cross-country clubs, as opposed to teams that are funded by the schools.
Yeah, George, I want to go directly to you about coaches losing their credibility. So roster caps, in my opinion, are coming because they're needed with this changing landscape. And coaches cried wolf. And years ago, roster caps was between 85 and 120. And now we may not have walk-ons anymore. What is your reaction to that piece as a result of the House case?
It will be, evolution always finds a way. So I'm gonna put it to you like that. They're gonna find a way around it. They're gonna find a way to work with it and work through it. I don't think that, you can. It's
George,
a
real
tough.
quick on this.
Yeah.
You paid Kirby Smart $9 million.
Right.
That's what you choose to do, insert school, Georgia. Yet we've got to pay X amount of dollars to this. It's going to be hard moving forward to justify that cost with all of these other costs if the schools are on the hook for the $20 million.
Right.
So I just wanted to add that piece as you were coming up with your answer, because that's kind of how the older would think about it.
Right.
But you paid somebody $95 million not to work, and we owe to our student athletes and Title IX and all of these things. So again, what do you think? Because in my opinion, coaches have already lost credibility to have a seat at this table in terms of making that argument. So yeah, they should be at the table,
Right.
but what they're crying about, you can't cry about anymore.
Right. Well, they have, because they're going to get the money. They're getting the money regardless. So and there's a limited pot for the players. But this is where NIL is going to come in, and this is where I was trying to get my words together. You don't have the money to pay the kids, but you're going to find a way to pay the kids, and that's where it's going to be, because you're going to see where it's going to be like, all right, I'm already paying this kid X amount of dollars, but we need this kid. So I got to go out here. Hello, Mr. Booster. I need this kid now. So can we get can we get some NIL money? Because that $20 million is not touching NIL. NIL is a whole separate bag right there. So that's why I started off by saying they're going to find a way. And my other question goes back to the one before Robert's asking, where Robert brought up Title IX. My big question when I was reading through all of this and stuff is, usually you have an equivalent, a female equivalent to a male equivalent with sport. What's football's equivalent?
Robert, you want that?
There is no equivalent for football. There never has been.
Yeah.
But here's what I don't understand. I've never understood this. Okay. You have football programs that have 120, 130 guys on their roster. You want to make football more equivalent? Say you get 90. Bam. That's it. Because if you do that, you cut those 30, 40 guys that, even if you're not giving them scholarships, you're still giving them equipment, you're still giving them gear, you're still dressing them out, you may still be transporting them. I mean, you're spending a boatload of money on these 40 guys who, let's be honest, will never, ever, ever see the field. And why are they doing that? They've always done it. And it's like, oh, well, we need practice players. No, you don't. You don't need 130 guys to run a football program at Alabama, Georgia, Texas, wherever. You don't.
And Robert, that goes to football coaches losing their credibility, because the NFL has 54-man roster plus a practice squad. So as a result of being greedy, you now can't come to the table when we're having all of the educators come, all the budget people come, all the finance people come, because you got to find this money and say, I got nothing on that one. Go ahead, George.
You say they can't, but they still will.
Because they're going to try.
Because they'll turn right back around, and they'll take that check that they got from ESPN or CBS and be like, do you see what we make for this school? You won't have that economics building if we did not go to the Citrus Orange Bowl. That check, that building doesn't get built without me going to the Orange Bowl.
Which takes me to the expanding of the NCAA tournament.
Hang on, man. Hang on. Yes, they're going to do that. Okay. So, all right, cool. What are you going to do? Where are you going to go? Where are you going to go to make $9 million to coach football if I don't give you this money? What are you going to do? I don't know.
Which takes us to the expanding of the NCAA tournament. So last week, NCAA officials presented Division I conference commissioners with at least two different models, gentlemen, that could expand the NCAA tournament from 72 teams to 76 teams, give or take, depending on what model came up. So, George, some of that money may go there. I did want to ask Robert. The University of Houston made a personnel decision. They moved on from athletic director Chris Pesman after 7 years. The school announced last week. Robert, I thought Houston was doing pretty well. Anything local going on that you can let us know about why Houston made that move?
I don't have a lot of insight to that. I do know that aside from men's basketball, they kind of struggle in the Big 12. They're not, their baseball team wasn't real competitive. I don't think their women's basketball team was real competitive. People here are really down on their football team.
Football team was it was supposed to be up in the tops in Big 12. Yeah.
Yeah, they're Big 12. They're going to get Big 12 talent, but
yeah.
People here are ranking like in the state. If you're familiar with Texas at all, Dave Campbell's Texas football. You have to pay attention to that because that's all things football. They're ranking Houston like they're 14 or 15 FBS teams. They're ranking them like 11th and 12th.
Wow.
Can't
do that in Texas.
No. So there's something there. But I'm not exactly sure what.
All right. So, George, we're going to close off with you talking about the Southwest Athletic Conference Commissioner, Charles McClendon, who's possibly the smartest man in the world. He's received a contract extension through 2032. The SWAC's Council of Presidents and Chancellors announced his contract extension last week. He was named the sixth commissioner in 2018. The SWAC has been growing. They also have the HBCU leagues in terms of more marketing, more everything. And maybe it's a good thing to kind of get off the boat and stay put. What do you think about the SWAC locking up their commissioner for the next 8 years?
It was smart for them with the moves that they've made with this resurgence. I'm not gonna put it all on the emergence of Dion. It was kind of like a Caitlin Clark situation where you brought attention down to those historically Black colleges and the brand of ball, but it reached over not just in football, but it reached over in other sports. So it was good for them. We hope they do some things to keep it up and that it keeps going because it's looking like a number of schools that were really in trouble of not being around anymore are now going to have the opportunity to be around. And that's the big thing about it. That's the bright light in there that they got a chance to continue to be around right now. I'll go back real quick before Richard. That NCAA with the tournament going again, we're looking at another money grab again. It's another money grab again. And you have part of this and what's driving this is that these TV deals that were able to put even more sports on television to give us to see all these different, there is revenue. The minute they saw they could drive even more revenue with the more different sports and stuff that they put on, they're taking it to the extreme now. I mean, it's just getting crazy with another extra round added on NCAA tournament. Oh, and nobody's going to care. And they're not, because we're going to eat it up because we most of us watch and don't even care who's in the damn tournament. We just watch just to watch. And like right now, I was looking at the numbers. In the College World Series, the damn regional rounds were the highest, like the TV ratings were the highest they've been ever. So this is nothing. This is going to continue. It's just going to continue. That's why I said, man, they're going to have to get somebody. They're going to have to put a governing body together to get this stuff under control. Because you look at like right now with the College World Series, the SEC and the ACC could have put that on by themselves. They don't need the NCAA and give them a check because every team in the College World Series was either an SEC or the ACC. So they were like, who cares? I mean, we're giving you a check just to be cool to you. You don't need it. We could take it and split the money between the two of us. So, hey man, it's a brave new world. It's a brave new world out here.
Yeah. And to close, this is a lot to take in. And I appreciate, our panel and giving these types of things the attention it needs. It still goes back to 3 simple concepts of leadership: structure, which are boundaries, and they haven't been created yet. Discipline is accountability, and the accountability measures have not been created yet. And support is high levels of help. And it's hard to help when you got one hand out and the other hand in a pocket. So we'll continue to cover it. We'll continue to be around it. But this is going to be a challenge, and good luck to everyone. And if you'd like consulting help, the Odd Coaches Podcast, the CKA Save Project, will be more than happy to provide assistance with you, along with our panel of experts. I'm Dr. Keith Adams saying thank you for listening and or watching the Odd Coaches Podcast, and we'll see you on the sidelines. Till next time, take care.
The Odd Coaches Podcast is sponsored by the CKA Save Project. The CKA Save Project is an industry leader in providing student-athlete academic and athletic support. From assessing student-athletes' academic and athletic skills, to measuring and monitoring student-athlete academic progress, to improving student-athlete time management and organizational skills, the CKA Save Project provides wraparound services for student-athletes from middle school through college. For more information, visit us on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org or schedule a free consultation with Dr. Keith Adams by emailing cka@ckasaveproject.org. We hope you enjoyed today's show. The Odd Coaches Podcast drops new episodes every Tuesday through Friday on most weeks. Make sure you subscribe to the Odd Coaches Podcast on Apple Music, iHeartRadio, Podbean, Spotify, and YouTube. Follow the Odd Coaches Podcast on Twitter and Instagram at Odd Coaches. Follow Dr. Adams on Twitter and Instagram at CKA Save Project. In addition, follow Coach Mike Francis on Twitter and Instagram at Coach Franchise, spelled Coach Franchize. For more information about the CKA Save Project, please visit them on the web at www.ckasaveproject.org. See you next time on the Odd Coaches Podcast.